Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I had parked at the end of the cul-de-sac, engine idling, and sat with my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than I realized. The streetlights flickered above, casting long shadows across the car's interior. I could see her from the rear-view mirror, Claire, walking down the sidewalk with that calm, almost too casual air that used to make me fall for her. Tonight, it made my chest tighten in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Stay here," she had said 10 minutes ago, leaning against the car, smiling like she was sharing a secret with the universe, not me. I obeyed, of course. That was the problem with me. I always obeyed. I thought that was loyalty. I thought it was love. But as she walked away, the weight of every ignored instinct, every subtle warning pressed down on me. I didn't follow. I didn't move a muscle. My own mind screamed at me to get out, to run after her, to demand answers, but I stayed. There was something terrifying in watching someone you trusted so fully choose to leave, not angrily, not in a fight, but with complete, serene indifference. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't even looking back. The house she approached belonged to a man I'd heard her mention before, casually, like his name meant nothing, like he was just another part of her social background. But the way she moved tonight, laughing lightly as if sharing a joke with the air, made abundantly clear. It was something else now, something intimate. My heart sank, my stomach knotted, and a strange, cold clarity settled over me. I tried to recall the signs, the whispers of discomfort, the subtle shifts in her behavior over the past 6 months. It started with the late nights she said were work emergencies. Then came the text she left on her phone, disappearing when I approached. The small excuses, the distant glances, the laugh that no longer included me. It all clicked now, like a puzzle I didn't want to solve. By the time she reached the front door, I realized I'd been holding my breath. My fingers loosened on the wheel, but my mind was a storm of disbelief and betrayal. The door swung open, and she stepped inside without hesitation, like she belonged there, and perhaps she did. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, not yet. I felt something heavier, deeper, the crushing weight of recognition. I had ignored myself for too long, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending that love could survive on habit alone. I remembered how we met years ago. I had been captivated by her energy, her brightness. She had been my world. The reason I worked extra hours, the reason I tried to keep things together even when life felt impossible. And now, that world had cracked open, leaving me staring at the fragments. I wanted to scream, to run, to demand answers, but my voice had gone somewhere I couldn't reach. A car door opened across the street, a low engine hum that made my chest tighten further. I realized it was his car, the man I had barely thought of until tonight. And she, Claire, walked into his home as if the past months, the shared dinners, the nights we spent planning our life, never existed. My jaw tightened. I felt the sting of humiliation, the bitter taste of betrayal, and then, strangely, a numb calm. I knew one thing. Whatever I believed about us had ended long before tonight. I wanted to rewind, to step out and confront her, but I didn't. Every instinct I had told me that this confrontation wouldn't change anything. She had chosen this path, and I could either watch or walk away. I watched. The lights in the house flickered, laughter spilling into the night. My stomach churned. I remembered her excuses, her half-truths, the little lies that had accumulated into a mountain of betrayal. And then I realized something almost horrifying in its clarity. It wasn't just the act that hurt. It was the fact that I had allowed myself to be invisible for so long, that I had waited for moments that would never come, that I had given so much, quietly, hoping it would matter. I sank back into the seat, breathing shallow, staring at the house like it had swallowed everything I thought I knew. And in that quiet, a plan began to form, not of revenge, not confrontation, but a survival. I had loved blindly. I had trusted without question. Tonight, that would end. I didn't know yet what the next step would be. All I knew was that something inside me had snapped, but it wasn't anger. It was clarity. And as I watched her smile through the window at a man I barely knew, I realized that the story I thought we were writing together had ended. Not with a fight, not with a scream, but with me sitting alone in the car, finally seeing her for what she really was. And in that moment, the world felt smaller, colder, but also strangely free. I didn't move for what felt like hours, just sitting there in the car, staring at the house as if by sheer will I could make the scene disappear. But reality is stubborn. The laughter, the light spilling from the windows, the way she leaned into him. It was all painfully real. My chest ached, but a strange resolve began to pulse through me. If I was going to survive this night, I had to reclaim my own power first. I started by simply leaving. Not to follow her, not to confront, not to demand. I drove. The road ahead was dark, empty, and cold, but somehow it felt safe in the car I had sat in, trapped by disbelief. I had always been the steady one, the man who fixed problems, held down jobs, and kept promises. Tonight, I realized that steadiness wasn't weakness. It was my foundation, and foundations aren't broken by betrayal alone. Hours later, I found myself at my old friend Matthew's apartment, a small one-bedroom downtown. He'd been expecting me, though not in the way anyone could anticipate. He didn't ask, didn't probe, didn't judge. He just poured 2 cups of coffee and let me sit in the quiet, a silent witness to my storm. For the first time, I allowed myself to admit that Claire wasn't just unfaithful. She had dismantled the life I thought we shared. Every subtle lie, every evasive smile, every work emergency now made sense. But the night wasn't finished. As dawn approached, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. My stomach sank. It was Claire. She left a message, short, clipped, almost mechanical. James, I didn't mean for you to see. It's complicated. Don't call me. I didn't call. I didn't text. But the message lit something inside me I hadn't felt in months. Clarity mixed with cold, calculating curiosity. If this was complicated, then I would learn every piece. Not for revenge, not yet, but to understand how someone I loved so deeply could vanish from my life so completely. Days passed. I pieced together small things. Friends who had noticed her distant behavior. Coworkers who mentioned late dinners. Social media posts that didn't add up. And then, the twist I hadn't expected. The man she wanted wasn't just a fling. He was someone she had been collaborating with professionally, a business connection that had slowly evolved into something more. The shock wasn't just betrayal. It was how methodical it had been, how invisible she had made it to me. Every laugh I thought was hers for me had been rehearsed, calculated. I remember the exact moment it clicked. I was at a cafe, nursing a coffee, scrolling through her public posts, when I saw a photo of them together. The caption was innocuous, celebrating milestones. But in the background, I recognized details only Claire and I had shared privately. My heart dropped, but strangely, the anger I expected didn't come. It was replaced by something heavier, sharper, focus. I started planning. Not revenge in the movie sense, not dramatic confrontations, but a reclamation of control. My life had been dictated by her choices for too long. Work, bills, weekends, smiles. I had structured everything around someone who had quietly shifted her loyalty. Now, I would rebuild around myself. The first step was detachment. I changed routines, withdrew from the shared circles, started focusing on the things I had neglected. My passions, my friendships, my work. Weeks later, the ultimate shock arrived. A mutual friend called, out of breath, almost whispering, "James, you need to see this. Claire, she's gone. Not with him." My brow furrowed. I listened, stunned. The man she had walked into that night had been a decoy, a carefully orchestrated distraction. The real story? She had been involved with someone entirely unexpected. Someone from her past she thought I would never trace. And somehow, in the chaos, she had underestimated me. I didn't chase her. I didn't confront. I didn't need to. The clarity I had found sitting in that car weeks ago had solidified into a strange, empowering peace. The betrayal was no longer a weapon against me. It was a trigger for my own freedom. I realized that love, at its worst, could destroy, but resilience, when cultivated, could reconstruct an entire life from the ashes of heartbreak. By the end of the month, I had moved into a new apartment, closer to work, surrounded by friends who had stayed loyal and honest. I had returned the last of her belongings, keeping only memories that reminded me why I deserved better. And somewhere in the quiet, a truth settled over me. I wasn't the man who had sat frozen in that car anymore. I was someone who had witnessed betrayal, acknowledged pain, and emerged sharper, wiser, and unbroken. Claire? I don't know what she felt. I don't care. The thrill of that night, the shock of witnessing her choice, had been replaced by something far more enduring. Me, finally untethered, fully alive, and aware that nothing, not betrayal, not lies, not love lost, could dictate the course of my life again. And as I walked to my new apartment, sunlight cutting through the blinds, I allowed myself the first real unburdened smile in months. Freedom, I realized, doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers.